Hi, Pavni. Shall I just share my screen and check? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. I'll make you the co-host so that you can share.
Yeah, I'll just share and check.
Yeah, ma'am, please check it now.
Okay.
I think your network is not good. Like it is like
Okay, thank
getting
you.
stuck in between.
Now is it okay?
Yeah, ma'am. We just try to share the screen once and we will check it.
Yeah, yeah.
Subhalakshmi ma'am,
Yes, Kavya.
can you wait for 5 minutes?
No, I'm just checking if it is working.
Okay,
That's
okay.
all.
Okay, ma'am.
No. I'm not presenting now. I'm just checking if my screen's working.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, your screen is visible.
You can see my slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just change and check if it's okay. No, my slide. Okay, it's changed.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
All
It's
right, perfect. Okay, super. All right, now I'll wait for everyone to join.
Good afternoon, all. Welcome back. Hello, Subbu.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
How are
Yours
you,
is a live
ma'am?
presentation, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, are we all set? Kavya?
I think we'll
Okay, ma'am.
wait for
Okay, let's
5
start.
more minutes and start now, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the afternoon session of ISPPD Basic Science Rapid Review Program. Without further delay, let's begin our program. Our speaker is Dr. Subhalakshmi ma'am, Professor and Head of the Department of Pediatric and Preventive Dentistry at Malabar Dental College and Research Center, Kerala. She completed her MDS and BDS from Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, Chennai. She has several high-impact publications to her credit, and she has undergone advanced training in health professions, education, and clinical research methodology. She has authored several impactful publications, contributed to textbook chapters, and served as an editor and executive committee member of ISPPD. We warmly welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kavya. And thank you, Team Royal. Are we ready to go, or do we wait for 5 minutes for them to join in?
We'll wait for 5 minutes. 41 people have joined so far. Another 5 minutes means.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll probably just share my screen and all and get ready.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
them also join in.
Yes, sure.
Yes, I hope the screen is visible.
Yes.
Thank you. So, yes, lucky are the first years who are there now because they get a rapid review of first year exam because we had no idea when we were going to write the exam. So, yeah, I think everybody is making use of it also, right?
I think so. Many universities don't have psychology in their first year, I mean, basic sciences
First year.
exam, but in some universities there are. So we have included psychology
Yes,
as well.
ma'am. That's wonderful, ma'am. Actually, we used to have in Ramchandra, we used to have psychology with our first paper.
Basic paper.
But the thing is, two beautiful topics in the afternoon to put everybody to sleep. Research methodology, biostatistics, and child psychology.
Psychology, yes.
So,
But then, you know, we have good speakers who will make sure that the students don't go to sleep.
I hope so, ma'am. Let's see, ma'am. So,
I think it's about 62 participants and we'll start off. Is it not?
I'll start, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yes,
Thank
sure.
you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Malabar Dental College and Research Center, Kerala. So, welcome to the Basic Sciences Rapid Review, first edition, which is happening. So, I'm very happy to be a part of it, and special thanks to ISPPD and Team Royal, especially to Anjana ma'am, to have given me this opportunity. So, over the next 60 minutes, we are going to be looking at, especially post lunch, I know, we're going to be looking at an overview of research methodology and biostatistics. Before I begin, there are two, three small things that I wanted to share with you as a disclaimer. Whatever I am sharing with you during the next 1 hour, it is not completely what is required. Okay. So I am looking at relevant points that you should not miss out when you are preparing for the exam. It's not like it's a completely exhaustive discussion on the topic. Number two, I'm not going to be teaching you research methodology and biostatistics. Rather, I'm going to give you a rapid review, especially putting a little emphasis on how you should prepare for your exam and what you should be preparing. Definitely required to do some supplementary reading. And most importantly, I'll also say that I have taken some images, developed some images using artificial intelligence. I have used a lot of discretion there, but still there might be some errors. So please be very cautious when you're depending solely on those images. Having said that, let us start with our discussion. So when we look at the 2017 syllabus for this topic, we see that there are basically two things which are there, very two broad principles which are there. One is principles of research methodology, and the other is principles of biostatistics. So we'll do it under these two headings separately. So we'll start with the principles of research methodology. So when we are going to be talking about research methodology, that whole segment is going to be focusing on the conceptual planning, ethical implementation, and systematic execution of dental research. So what are the major headings that we are going to be looking at? We're going to be looking at what is research design, what is protocol formulation, how do you formulate a protocol, what is samples, sampling architecture, bias and confounders, and ethical standards that we need to maintain when we are doing research. So these are the five topics which we will be looking at in detail under research methodology. So research design basically is a set of methods and procedures which is used to collect and analyze data in order to answer a question. Basically, it is like a architectural blueprint for a building. Just like that, it is that is what is called as research design. So it helps you to answer the research question accurately. It minimizes bias, controls confounding, improves the validity and reliability of the study. It ensures efficient use of time and resources, and it facilitates interpretation of the results. So these are the things that a research design does. So next thing is, what are the types of research designs? This question has been asked multiple times in different universities. So please make sure that you note this. There are 3 or 4 different ways of classifying research designs or study types. One important way is as quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method research design. So what is a quantitative study design? This approach is basically used for testing objective theories, basically by examining the relationship among variables. It relies fully on numbered data that can be analyzed using a statistical procedure, and usually has a very rigid structure. There is a way that you pick the variable, there is a way that you pick the sample, the way that the statistics is applied, everything. Okay. So the example of this is survey research or an experimental research. All these will come under quantitative research design. The next is qualitative research design. This is basically used for exploring and understanding the meaning that ascribed to a social or human problem. Okay, it involves a very emerging design. It's not like you are very rigidly, this is how you can do it. So here what happens is, there is a lot, and the analysis is than statistical. It is an inductive data analysis, something like a thematic analysis, right? So that is qualitative research design. And a mixed method design is when we have a combination of both these types of research, which are together done in one single type of to answer a single question. And by default, usually a mix better than on your research. I'm sorry, I think I got logged out. I'll just share again.
Yeah, your screen is not there.
Yeah, I'm just sharing my screen
No
and
problem. Yeah, we can see it.
okay. Was it here that I got out, or was it before?
I see
Anyone,
it, but
if you can just text. Did I finish this slide? Okay, it's all right. I'll start from here itself. So basically, research design can be 3: quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. So quantitative, like I said earlier, is where you're going to be looking at numbers basically. And qualitative is when we are going to look at what or how somebody feels about something, attitude, affective domain. Those are the things we are going to be covering under qualitative research methods. And mixed method is when we have a combination of these 2 methods working together. So based on the objective, if we divide research methodology or research designs, we can divide them into exploratory research, where, when we don't have anything to base a hypothesis on. So at that time, the kind of research that we do is called as exploratory research. We want to write a hypothesis, So for that, we want to find certain details, or we want to find something about something which is very new, some topic which is very new. That is exploratory research. Then descriptive research, like the way it is said itself, it is to accurately portray the characteristics of one particular individual, group, or situation. Diagnostic, we are going to look at association or causality or causality. And hypothesis testing is when we have a hypothesis and we are testing whether the relationship between the variables. This is, I'm sure all of you are very familiar with this way of dividing the study designs as observational study and experimental study. Under observational studies, basically we'll have three types of studies. Your cross-section, your case control study is the study where both disease, your cross-sectional study is the first type of study, which is like, you're just looking at something at one glance, okay? What is happening, both the disease and the exposure are there at the same time. Case control, we'll be looking at each one of this in detail now as to how you can answer for a question. Remember, this classification has been asked as a short note multiple times, as a question multiple times, and also either one of the study designs has been asked. So remember, this is not something that you can leave out. So please make sure that you read these things. Okay. Randomized controlled trial, which is an experimental design, is a gold standard. We'll be looking at all three now in detail. So the other way of, research design is as descriptive or exploratory design and secondary or primary data design. See, when you're getting when you're doing a systematic review, you're not going to be doing any data collection by yourself. You are synthesizing new results from already pre-existing data, right? So that is a secondary synthesis, secondary design. Okay. So these are the different ways by which, these are the 4 ways by which we can classify study designs. Mandatory for you to note the next few slides, cross-sectional study. And whenever you're writing about any one study, if it is being asked as a question, remember to start like this, right? The general features. Make sure you write what are the key features, where is this going to be used, maybe give one example, then the advantages and limitations of that particular type of study, and what is the statistic which will be gained out of that particular type of study. Okay. For example, cross-sectional study is an observational study where both exposure and outcome are there simultaneously at a time. It's a snapshot of a population. It happens at a single point. So basically, we are looking at prevalence, right? One point of time, what is there? Prevalence. There's no follow-up which is there. Something like prevalence of early childhood KDs among school children or preschool children, anything. So the advantages is it is quick, it is inexpensive, it is very useful for prevalence studies, but it cannot establish temporality. Temporality, always remember, chicken and egg. You don't know whether the exposure caused the disease or this came first or that came first. So that is the limitation of a cross-sectional study. Also, you cannot use it to prove that this exposure caused the disease. So the measure that you will obtain out of a cross-sectional study is a prevalence measure. The next type of design is your case control study. A case control study is an epidemiological design. So here it's an observational type of study. It compares a group which has, see, both of them have the disease, and a group which is controlled. And you look back as to who got the exposure and who did not, right? So you, at that given point of time, it is an outcome-oriented selection. Retrospective, you're looking back in time. Here, one important word that you will have to remember is matching. Matching means any person who is, that is, accept the exposure, they should be very similar to the case. The case and the control, the difference will be the exposure. Other than that, they should be similar. It's excellent for rare diseases. It's relatively quick because you don't have to wait. taking someone, you're asking someone for if they had the exposure, what happened, and all those things. And you can examine multiple exposures also. But the limitations of this kind of study is recall bias, because I may not remember what happened, right? So you ask the parent of a 5-year-old child how many times they breastfed their child when he was 1 year, they may not remember, right? Then again, it is prone to selection bias. That is also one thing, because when we are, if the matching does not happen properly, then selection bias could happen. And here you cannot calculate incidence risk because already the disease has occurred. The next type of study design is your cohort study design. Cohort study design, again, it compares a group with the exposure and a group without the exposure. You take two groups who are very similar to each other, and one group has the exposure, the other does not have the exposure. You follow them up in time and then see who develops the outcome. So it is a exposure oriented selection, and you follow them forward in time, and this is good for us to establish temporality, what happened first, right? So here cohort, as the name suggests, is a group of people, or it's actually a people with similar characteristics. Okay, so we look for the outcome and see who got it or who didn't. So here you will get relative risk, and also obviously because the disease is developed later, we'll also be able to calculate the incidence. Okay. Advantage is excellent for studying multiple outcomes because you're going to be following the patient. So there is a lot of things that you can study. Best for establishing cause and effect relationship, and you can measure incidence rate. But if you have a rare condition, you're not going to be able to use the cohort design. Again, time consuming and expensive, because a lot of patients may fall out of the study, which most of you will know. If you have done thesis, you recruited 25 patients, hardly 15 of them turn back, right? Then again, it becomes difficult. So it's also prone to confounding factors. We look at what confounders are in a bit. And the next design is randomized control trials. This is the gold standard design. Definitely has been asked multiple times, and also what is the concept and principles, right? So it's an experimental design, a random allocation of subjects. It compares a group where an intervention is there with that who doesn't have the intervention. Again, excellent way, the strongest way by which you can establish cause and effect, right? So what are the key characteristics that you should learn, you should understand in this? One is blinding. Okay, what is blinding? Blinding is wherein either the participant or the investigator or the person who's doing the analysis is blind, is does not know who has got the intervention and who has got the control. So it can be either one or two or three of these people who are blinded, when it is called a single, double, or triple blinding. So blinding you should know. Randomization, you should know how randomization can be done. What are the different methods of randomization? What is randomization? Equally important for you to know. So what are the advantages of this study design? Directly you can measure causality, that whether it is, and you can reduce selection bias because of randomization. Selection bias is reduced. So it is a study design which has a strong internal validity. But the thing is, there are a lot of ethical constraints, right? We cannot simply go ahead and do a randomized control trial. And also we have to keep a leeway for people who don't adhere to what we tell them, subjects who are non-adherent. So those are some of the things that we have to be careful. So the step by step, you should also know about how an RCT is conducted. All right. So till now, we have looked at study designs. This is a brief of the study design. So make sure that you remember at least this table so that you will be able to write this short note if this comes as a question. Any one of the study design comes as a question, or if you are asked to compare between 2 study designs or 3 study designs, or to choose a particular study design for a given situation. So remember this one table at least. Okay. In fact, at this point, I'd like to share a small tidbit with you. What I would suggest is I'll be sharing a PDF of this presentation. You can take screenshots of these, keep them as screensavers for a few days so that you'll remember unknowingly, at least each time you unlock the phone, you'll be seeing that part of the screenshot. So you'll remember these things, when it comes to the exam. All right. So now I'll move on to the next part. What we are going to be looking at, protocol formation or how to write a protocol. We already saw that a protocol is a blueprint of a research project. So basically a protocol, study protocol, this also has been asked as an exam, as a question in the, I think I saw it in the MUHS and in Kerala University. This has been asked as a question to write how a protocol is written. So remember that a protocol is something which describes why is the study needed, how will you select the participants, how will the data be collected, how will you make sure ethical issues are all addressed well, and how the analysis will be done. It is basically you have the complete plan in hand before you do the study. Right, so components of a research protocol, this I'm sure all of you can probably write it off your hand because you all have prepared your synopsis now. But title, background and rationale of why the study is required is important. Objectives, methodology, statistics, ethics, ethical considerations, and timeline and budget. So remember to write all these headings and write what is required under these headings. Okay. So make sure that you don't simply write the heading and leave it. And one thing which you might not have included in detail is your Gantt chart and your budget. Please make sure that that is also written. So some of the things, there are about 3 or 4 things which I want you to remember as far as a protocol writing is concerned. It should be, the research question should be focused, it should be answerable, relevant and researchable, or rather it should fulfill this criteria. Please write this mnemonic there, finer criteria, which means it is feasible. That is, it is feasible for you to do it. You have the resources, the sample size is achievable, the time is there. That interesting, that it is interesting for you, it is interesting for the reader. If when it gets published, then it is a novel idea, it is going to add to the knowledge which is already there. It is ethical, which means that the participant will be protected, and it addresses important problems which are currently there. Okay. So remember this finer criteria and please write it in full. The next thing I want you to remember is your PICO framework, which is basically your population intervention comparison and outcome. So basically, who are you going to be, who is going to be there in your study? What are you going to do? Whom are you, what is the outcome that you're going to measure, and whom are you going to compare it with? All right. So make sure that you see it. For example, if you're looking at some fluoride varnish application in preschool children, that's your population. So fluoride varnish application is your intervention. Children who do not get your varnish is your comparison. Whether they got KD's incidence is the outcome that you're measuring, something like this. So remember, depending on the question which is there, remember to answer this. So protocol development flowchart also, please remember, these are the same things that we have discussed before. So as far as protocol formulation is concerned, remember these points: finer, PICO, SMART. I think SMART I didn't mention. It is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay. That is what SMART stands for. Your objectives should be SMART. Your aim should be SMART. So, and you should be able to synthesize a hypothesis which you will test, and what are the ethical considerations. Hypothesis and ethics we will discuss in detail in a bit. So now we have looked at developing a protocol, we've looked at different designs. The next thing, important thing in research methodology that we are going to be seeing is sampling. Okay. So it's not possible for us to measure every single individual in a population, right? Because it's going to take a lot of time, cost, and logistics. So we use something called as sampling. What is sampling? It is a process of selecting smaller representative group from a large population, right? Basically, something that a group whom we can select so that we can generalize the results. Okay, basically, it should bridge the gap between a massive population and a manageable data collection. Did I get logged out in the screen?
I think
Now it
so.
is visible. We can see you.
Yeah,
we
no,
can
did I
see.
get logged out in this screen or before this?
No, you didn't get logged out. We can
Oh,
see
I
you. We
didn't
can
get.
see your
Oh,
screen.
okay. Because my screen for me it got shut down. Okay. So basically, I was talking about target population. It is the entire group of people whom we want to understand. Suppose, say, I want to look at KD's prevalence in children in the state of Tamil Nadu. So it is all the children who are in Tamil Nadu between 0 to 6 years is my target population. Whereas my sample is the actual number of people whom I am going to measure. It may not be possible for me to measure all that, probably say 30 lakh or 50 lakh children who will be between 0 to 6 months of age, 6 years of age, right? So that sample will be a smaller group who are highly representative of the large sample. So we look at how to make them highly representative or make sure that they are highly representative. So a sampling frame is the first thing. Sampling frame is a complete list of all eligible individuals in the population from which I'm going to draw my sample. Okay. And the next word we need to know is sampling bias, which occurs because of the way I am picking up the people, picking up the sample. Okay. So there are two types of sampling, probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So probability sampling, like it's like the word suggests itself, everybody has a chance of being selected. Okay. Non-probability is when I'm sure that everybody is selected. Okay. So probability sampling, what are the different methods by which probability sampling is done? Simple random sampling, like your lottery, pick a table of numbers, all these can happen. But for this, we'll need a homogeneous population, which is, a small population. Stratified random sampling is another way where I stratify people. I have a large group. So I say in each strata, I need so many people and how I take up those people. Systematic sampling is when, every fifth person I pick up or every third person I pick up, I put them in some order of height, age, something, and every third person I pick up, every fifth person I pick up. Cluster sampling is something when I use when I have a dispersed population, like the previous example I told you. I want to look at ECC in Tamil Nadu. I cannot look directly, make a list of all the children in Tamil Nadu and take lottery, right? So what I do is I divide it into districts, the districts into further probably say taluks, and then in the taluk I divide into schools, and then out of these schools and all this I'll be randomly doing. Okay. And out of the school, maybe one section is what I will be taking as my sample. So that is cluster sampling. So in every district, out of each taluk, out of all the schools, there'll be 3 schools. That's one way of sampling. So probability sampling it reduces bias. It is highly generalizable, and statistical accuracy is better. Non-probability methods are like your convenience sampling, something that we all do for our short studies, right? Whoever comes to my clinic, I'll take theirs there, right? So the problem is risk of bias. Okay, I'm looking at prevalence of ECC. I look at whoever comes to the dental college. Obviously, the people who are there are going to come with caries, right? Or some issues. So that is there. The other is purposive sampling. I want somebody who is an expert in this. Okay. So I use my own judgment to pick this person or the other person. So that is purposive sampling. Next is snowball sampling. I recruit one person, ask him to recruit two other people. Those two people recruit two more people. So it goes like that. Again, here, it's not possible that randomly anybody can be part of it, right? And then the other non-probability sampling method is when you have a quota sampling. I want 300 people for a sample. Out of the 500 people who are there in my target population, there are 200 males and females can get chance to be in the population, right? I 150. This again a non-probability method of sampling. Okay, but don't think that non-probability sampling is bad. It is usually used for qualitative studies and when we have difficult to reach populations. These are the times when we use them. So remember that also. Okay. Now we have done with how to calculate the sample size. So whenever what is alpha? Sample size, when we are going to determine the sample size, basically it means getting the right number, which will make sure that our study has enough, wasting time, money, or resources on an unnecessarily large group. So alpha is type 1 error or a positive error. Okay. Beta is a type 2 error, which is known as a false negative error. All right. So remember these. Then what are so before you're directly going into any formula for calculating sample size, what is the first one? Confidence level. Okay. Basically, what is confident level? How confident are you that your sample truly reflects your target population? Okay. How confident are we? We should be at least 95% confident. Okay. That is what is that Z equal to 1.96. We always use that, no, whenever we are calculating sample size. That is this. Okay. The next thing is what is the power of the study. Okay. That is 1 minus beta, or that is the probability that the study will correctly detect and if this. Okay. So that is your power of the study. Then we'll have to look at margin of error, which is the maximum acceptable distance your sample results can deviate from the true population value. We usually keep this at as 3 or 5%. That's the margin of error that we keep. Then what we need to know is expected proportion. For this only, we look for key article when we are selecting, no, for sample size calculation, because we want to know what is the expected proportion or variance. Or sometimes if it is the presence or absence of a disease, we say 50%. Okay. So remember, we need these four things. Once we have defined these things, we'll choose the formula. The formula is chosen based on two things. One, the population size, and also your study design. Okay. And then you have to include two other things. One is the dropout cushion, because whatever sample size you're going to keep, there is going to be 10 or 20% who are going to not follow up for your study. So add that to your sample size. And then there is one more thing that you should be aware of and you should write when you're answering a question on sample size is the effect size rule. That is, if you expect a massive difference between the study groups, your sample can be smaller, it is okay. But if the difference is very subtle, you will need a large sample to prove that it is not by a random choice. Okay. So till now, we've looked at how to calculate sample size. What are the different factors that you should know when you're calculating sample size? The next thing is bias and confounding. So basically, these are among the most commonly repeated questions. I should say bias I have seen it in multiple question papers. So please make sure that you have prepared this answer and you know this very well. So bias is basically any systematic error which occurs in a study. It can occur in the design, it can occur during execution or analysis. And this bias will result in distortion of the results, and it will lead to an incorrect conclusion. Okay. A random error can happen by chance, but bias consistently, it will lean in one specific direction. Okay. So you can make sure that you skew the data away from the truth which is there. And when you are having, if you do not have as adequate sample size, your validity of your study itself can be flawed if you have your bias. Another thing is, it can happen at any point of time in your research project. So right from when you are starting for your initial research review, remember when you're writing your review of literature, how we are going to arrive at your question? Even from that point, bias can sit into your study. So you have to be very careful to even publication. So some of the types of bias, this is not an exhaustive list of biases, but some of the types of biases are selection bias, basically who gets into the study, occurs when the study population is not accurately representing the real world target population. In this one example, I think I already quoted, is the word that we use is called as Bergson's bias. That is, if I decide to select cases and controls from a hospital setting, then naturally the people are more sicker than the general population, right? Whoever is going to come to the hospital is more sicker than the general population. So that's a selection bias, right? That is one thing. And then another thing, somebody who's volunteering to be part of the study. And if you are going to look at the non-response rate there, see, I have the disease, I have come to I'm coming for cure of the disease, I will likely respond, whereas somebody without the disease might not respond to your questions later. So that is again one type of bias. The next is information bias, how you gather the data. The way somebody recall bias, I don't remember what happened when I'm gathering data. If I'm studying it, I may, my measurement could be wrong, right? Those are there. Then observer bias or interviewer bias. So what I will do is, consciously or unconsciously, I'm asking questions. I will ask leading questions or ask them to an answer which I want them to answer in a certain way, right? Here you can remember the word Hawthorne effect, because that's what happens when a patient or a study participant, they know that they are being watched. They tend to behave well. For example, you're following up on whether they're using brushing twice daily. You call them every week and ask them, have you brushed twice on how many days, and all those things. There is a likelihood that they are brushing twice daily, at least to say yes to you. But this may not be the condition otherwise, right? So that kind of bias can happen. So now the next thing is confounders. Okay, we'll talk about confounders in a bit. So how to control bias? The three methods to control bias are randomization, blinding, and matching. Randomization is distributes known and unknown confounders equally between the study arms. Blinding is you keep the participants, researchers unaware. We've already spoken about it. Matching is make sure that the control and the cases are similar, right? So controlling bias in each stage, in the design stage, randomization to control selection bias, the execution stage, blinding and objective digital registries, that can be used, which will restrict observer or recall bias, and during analysis to look for confounders and use multivariate regressions. Okay, I think I've covered this. Let's not waste further time looking at this. Next thing is confounder. Okay, a confounder is a variable which is hidden, in a study. It's a factor that will distort the true relationship between an exposure and an outcome. Okay, the confounder will be independently related to both what we are testing and what we are measuring. The example which I have given there of coffee and lung cancer. You're looking at people drinking coffee and how much lung cancer that they get. How many of them get lung cancer? But it has been a proven fact that smoking, people who smoke are likely to get lung cancer, and people who smoke are likely to drink more coffee. So smoking is related to both coffee and lung cancer, but there is no direct relationship between coffee and lung cancer. See, so the smoking is a confounder. It will really affect the way we are getting the result. So confounders, I have not seen that question much in the question paper, but it is a potential question. So you should be able to write about confounders. What is a confounder? What are the three conditions to call something as a confounder, and how to identify? What are the different methods of controlling confounders? When you're designing, again, randomization will help. Then again, restriction of participants where as and where it is available. Otherwise, match it. Enroll cases and controls who have very identical profiles. So, for known confounders, right? So those are ways in the design phase when we can control it. When you're analyzing, one way is stratification. Stratification means you break the data into groups, small groups, or subgroups. You say among smokers, so many were drinking so much of coffee and they got lung cancer. Among non-smokers, it was like this. And the other is by multivariate regression, where you can run multiple regression analysis which can keep the confounders at bay. Okay, having discussed all that, let's move on to ethical standards or ethics in research methodology. So there are a few important questions: informed consent, vulnerable population, IEC. These are the three things I have seen multiple times in the question bank or in the question paper. History of research or development of ethics or good clinical practices is this is the actual history. If you cannot remember everything from 1906 to 2017, remember at least this much. Okay, this you cannot afford not to know. You should know what each document was, when it was done, and what is the key contribution of these documents. The next thing is the core ethical principles. Remember, there are 12 ethical principles, 12 principles of conduct of ethical research. But remember at least these three. One is autonomy, second is beneficence or non-maleficence, and the third is justice. Okay. So what is autonomy? The individual should be respected, which means they must be treated as someone who's capable of making their own decisions. For autonomy, what we do is informed consent. So we'll look at informed consent in the next slide. So here in autonomy, we'll have to understand who are the vulnerable population. We will look at that also soon. All right. So that is autonomy. Beneficence or non-maleficence means do not harm, which means you should be doing a risk-benefit analysis before you plan your study before you include anyone in your study. Okay. And the third is justice, where the burdens and benefits of research must be distributed fairly across the society. Okay. So you cannot select participants based on your convenience or their vulnerability or, low income group alone who are included and things like that when you're doing a research. So remember these three core principles. This has been asked in one of the papers I've seen. Whenever you're taking an informed consent, these many things should be there. Okay, it is a process. It is not a merely a signature. The participant should understand the study. They should know the purpose for which it is being done, what is going to be done, what are the risks that they have when they take part in the study, what are the benefits that they will have in the study, how are you going to make sure that you keep their information confidential, and you let them know that it is a voluntary participation that they do, and how to withdraw, that they can withdraw at any point. Again, in informed consent, as far as children are concerned, above 7 years, we take assent from the child also. Otherwise, it is consent from the parent. All right. So, who are vulnerable population? Vulnerable population are a group of people who cannot make decisions. Additional safeguards are necessary because they may have limited autonomy. So children, pregnant women, prisoners, cognitively impaired people, or economically disadvantaged people, these are all the different vulnerable population. So to make sure that you're following all this, there is something called as the Institutional Ethics Committee, which is basically their work is to review your scientific content, make sure that your study, is planned and executed ethically. It is they are like the people who will protect the participants and keep overseeing your study over a period of time. The composition of the Institutional Ethical Committee has come as a question, I think, in the Tamil Nadu question paper, NGR question paper. I have seen that. So please go through that also and be aware. It should have a chairperson or a member secretary, which is a chairperson who's from an external institute, somebody, who is a non-affiliated expert. The next, you will have the member secretary who will maintain all the SOPs and everything which is required, who will maintain the notes, minutes, everything. You'll have 1 to 2 basic medical specialists or subject experts from the institution and 1 to 2 from outside the institution. You will need to have a legal person who could be a retired judge or a lawyer who's part of the ethical committee, a social activist or a social scientist or an NGO activist who can member, who has to be there. At least one lay person, who can empathize with the person, who's a non-expert member from the community, who should be present, and the presence of a psychologist or a theologist is also desirable. All right. Confidentiality and data protection. What are the different ways by which you can maintain confidentiality and protect the data? By coding, by anonymization of data, by making sure that your storage is secure and restricted access. And you will have to develop your answer with these 4 topics. Then in research violations, there's a lot of this. I think we can do a whole 1 hour session on this itself. But remember at least these 3 things and be ready to write an answer. One is fabrication, which is basically making up data when you're going to invent results, numbers, or double your data, all that. Falsification is that when you change intentionally, or you're changing or omitting critical records. You find that there are 2 people who have an outlying values. When you're writing your values, you just omit those 2, because of which your whole result will change. So that is not right. Plagiarism, as you know, is copying text, diagram, methods, data, anything from somebody else without acknowledging their contribution, right? So remember that. So far, we have spoken about research methodology, research designs, protocol formulation, sampling, bias, and ethical standards. So I don't know how many, I cannot see many of you on the video, so I don't know how many of you are awake. Because if you're awake, I'm very sure the next 20 minutes will put you to sleep. So let's look at it. We are going to look at principles of biostatistics. So in that, what all is important is data. We look at what is data, what we are going to do, descriptive statistics, inferential statistics, and the tests of significance. Data basically refers to a set of facts, statistics, observations, or measurements that could be examined in order to discover some pattern or trends. It may be figures, words, signs, or anything, right? So what are the types of data? Types of data has been asked as a question multiple times. If you can remember this much, awesome. But if you cannot remember all this, I'll give you a simplified version. This mandatorily you will have to remember. The type of data as quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative data can be further divided into discrete and continuous. Continuous as interval and ratio. Qualitative data, which is basically non-numerical data, is divided into a nominal and ordinal data, right? So discrete can be counted, limited. Please know your data levels very well, okay? So they can be asked, they can be part of any question. So you should know what is a discrete data, what is a continuous data, what kind of measures, because all your tests of significance, everything is based on your type of data, right? So how you are representing your data, everything is based on this. So understand them very well, not only from the exam point of view, for later also. Again, based on levels of measurement, you can call it as nominal, where, it's only name. There is no order, like your blood group. Okay. The next is when it's ordinal, where it is ranked, but there is no it's not like between rank 1 and 2 is the same as between 2 and 3. Okay. So that's like your Likert scale. Then there is a interval, where the distance is meaningful. So I have 20 degree, a patient comes to me measuring 34 degrees and a patient who's measuring, remember that. And when there is a internet true absolute zero, like in the case of weight or height, it is your ratio scale. So remember the levels of measurement. Remember, this is a summary of your data summary table. Take a screenshot of this. Make sure that you learn this, right? Because this is got how it is established and how you can, what is the test that you use for all these. We'll look at this table again as we look at it. And when we are looking at data, I thought I'll also add this one slide where normal and skewed data. Remember this. This is an important part of analysis of data, but I thought I'll discuss it when we are discussing itself. A normal distribution or a Gauss distribution is a continuum around its center. Okay. So the core characteristics, it will have a bell shape, right? The data curves smoothly upwards and then comes down in a smoothly. So there's a single peak. And usually the mean, median, and mode, they'll all be in the exact, will be okay, located at the same place, and it will be in the center of the distribution. Okay. And when you have skewed data, it will not follow a pattern like that. So remember that in a normal distribution, remember this 68, 95, 99.7. If you're wondering what that is, it is your mean plus 95% of your values will lie between mean plus or minus 2 standard deviation, right? So remember that. That is the best way to remember a normal distribution. Next is data visualization. That is how you graphically represent your data. So what is this used for? You use charts, graphs, maps, etc. What is it? It makes it easy to see and recognize patterns, trends, anomalies in data. So when you have large data, it is easier to analyze with them. So what are the different categories of data visualization? You can use a world map and you can put it there. You can put this hierarchy that this is more bar charts, all those things. Then you can use your histograms, which is multidimensional, or your pie charts, which are multidimensional. You can use a timeline, a line graph, that's your temporal, or your scatter plot, that is a temporal graph, or you can use a matrix. But even if you don't remember all that, you need to remember this because frequency graphs have been asked before. So histogram where there is continuous data, frequency polygon, a frequency bar chart. So you should know what is on the x-axis, what is on the y-axis, how it is represented, and what you fill in there. So make sure that you know what kind of data, if you have what kind of data, how you are going to use, what kind of chart you're going to use. I think I'm really running out of time. So I will skip through this and go to the next part, but I'll be sharing this. You can go through it. Next is descriptive statistics. In descriptive statistics, the important thing you need to know is measures of central tendency and then measures of dispersion, right? Measures of central tendency is basically the measures, statistical measures that describe the central or atypical value around which observations cluster, right? It will help us to summarize large data sets, describe the center of distribution, and facilitate comparison between groups. Three things: mean, median, and mode. So mean is the arithmetic average, median is the middle value after you arrange them in either ascending or descending order, and mode is the most frequently occurring observation. When to use each one? You use mean when there's continuous normally distributed data, something like your age, height, weight, DMFT, all those things. You use median when you have squid, when there are outliers which are there, and you use mode when you're using categorical data, right? Remember that. So again, remember these tables. I think these tables will really help you to summarize your answers, prepare your answers, and remember them. The next thing that you need to go through is measures of dispersion. measures of dispersion. In that, remember range, variance, and standard deviation. There are two types of measures of dispersion. That is the amount by which they deviate, that each item deviates from the mean that you have calculated. So there can be an absolute measure of dispersion and a relative measure of dispersion. The absolute measure is your range, your standard deviation, mean deviation, and quartile deviation. And when you have a coefficient of these, it is your relative deviation. So we'll start with the range. Range is the difference between the maximum and minimum observations in a given data. So the difference between that is your range, and coefficient of range is when you divide it by the total of both. You add up the maximum and minimum value and you divide the range, you get your coefficient of range. Mean deviation is when you have an average of absolute values of deviation from the mean, right? And when you have the square root of average values of squared deviations, it is called as standard deviation. Standard deviation is probably one of the most important values which we will be considering when we are doing analysis, because that will help you to understand, will establish whether your data is going to be normal or not. Okay, so variance is also, you should know, it is the average of the square differences between each data value and the mean, right? So, and the last one is quartiles. Quartiles is where you divide the whole data set into 4 parts. The lowest is the 25th percentile, which is denoted by Q1. The third is the 75th percentile, which is denoted by Q3. So deviation is Q3 minus Q1 is your is called as your quartile deviation or your interquartile range. Okay. I know that is quite fast, but we'll share the slides. We're running a little. Ma'am, can I continue or do you want me to stop? I can share the slides with them if the next person's getting
No,
delayed.
continue. No problem.
I'll take about 10 more minutes, 10
Yeah,
to 12
fine.
more minutes. So the next part is your statistical inference or inferential statistics. It is basically used to, basically for us to make inferences from the data that we have got or generalizations about the populations. So basically it helps us to make conclusions for the population that is beyond available data. So probably this image will tell you what is inferential statistics. We have a large group of people. From that, we did a sampling to find a representative group of people. On this representative group of people, we found the descriptive statistics. We said their mean is this, their this thing is that. Now, what we have to do is, from this results that I have got, what can I apply to the larger population? Can I apply everything to this population, right? Whether I want to know from my sample population, I want to know what is the situation in the general population. Okay, that is what is inferential statistics. Remember that much, that is good enough. So basically it is testing your hypothesis. So what are the steps in hypothesis testing? You'll have to formulate a hypothesis. We usually formulate two hypotheses. One is a null hypothesis, meaning there is no difference between the two, and the other is an alternate hypothesis, which says one is better than the other. Then we'll have to set the level of significance. That is, we'll have to look for alpha error. Then we have to choose a test, whether it's based on whether it's quantitative data or qualitative data. Then we have to set the p-value and critical value. And then we have to decide if you're going to accept the null hypothesis or reject it, right? And make an estimation. So to test the statistical hypothesis about the formula, like I said, one is a null hypothesis where there is no difference, or an alternate where it says that there is a significant difference. Your hypothesis should be very clear and precise. It should be capable of being tested. Okay. And you should state the relationship between the variables very specifically and as simple as possible. Okay. I will let you take a screenshot of this. This is a comparison between null and alternative hypothesis. I have not seen a question of comparison, but there has been a question of what is null hypothesis before. All right. Okay. So when you're interpreting the results of the hypothesis, what you do is when it is accepted if at your results will fall in such a way that it is within 2 times the mean plus or minus the standard error. So if it falls here, if it's a normally distributed data, remember I already spoke to you about it. So 1.96 times the standard error plus or minus the mean. If 95% of your values will fall in there, that means only 5% is outside of it, then you accept your hypothesis. If it is more, if it falls within your zone of rejection, you will reject it. So remember that. So what are the types of errors which can happen? When your hypothesis is true and you accept it, it's okay. When your hypothesis is true and you reject it, it is an alpha error or a type 1 error. That is when you are rejecting a hypothesis when it is true. When you are accepting a hypothesis when it is false, it's called as beta error. So these are the two types of errors which can happen when you're with your hypothesis testing. Then I think all our nightmares are around this value, right? The p-value. It is the probability of obtaining a result equal to or more extreme than what is actually observed. That is, out of 100 observations, 95 times it is actually true, and 5 times we got a false positive conclusion. That is what your p-value of 0.05 means. Okay. So if it is, if your value is less than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternate hypothesis. Remember that much, and you should be able to write this clearly. Okay, this we have already discussed, right? So choosing the test of significance. Okay, it's dependent on two things: what kind of data you have, whether you have a continuous data, a numerical data, a categorical data, nominal data, and how your data is distributed. Whether it is normally distributed, which we call as a parametric data, we'll use the parametric test. And if it is skewed or non-normal, we'll use the non-parametric test. So this is a table which will help you to choose which test of significance you will choose. So you have continuous numerical data and the data is normally distributed where you are comparing two independent groups. Students t-test is what we will be doing. When we are comparing two matched or paired groups, obviously we'll use the paired t-test. And here, if the data is non-parametric or non-normally distributed, we'll use the Wilcoxon's signed rank test. So the thing is, you will have to remember these. I do not see, I tried for some mnemonic or something, I was not able to find anything. So remember this one chart. Like I suggested, please make some kind of an arrangement where you can go through it again and again so that you will remember these tests of significance. The next thing is correlation. Correlation measures the closeness of two continuous variables, the relationship between two variables, whereas a regression gives the, how one variable affects the other. Okay, it's something like this. Okay, on a hot summer day, you eat ice cream, and on a hot summer day, you can get sunburn. There is a correlation between the two, but you cannot say it is one causes that eating ice cream causes sunburn, right? So it is something like that. So correlation is not causation. Two things may be related to each other, but they are not causing each other. So what are the different types of correlation? The value will be between, coefficient of correlation will be between plus and minus 1. When it is 1, it means perfect correlation, and 0 means no correlation. Minus 1 means perfect negative correlation. Okay, remember at least this much you should be able to write this. I'm giving you the example of one test of significance, chi-square test. Please prepare for the other tests like this, because for want of time, I'm not going in detail about each one. You will have to prepare the definition, when is it used, what are the applications in pediatric dentistry, what are the steps in this test. For example, for a chi-square test, you formulate the hypothesis, you construct the contingency table, you calculate the frequencies, then the chi-square value, and then you compare it with the critical value or your p-value and draw a conclusion. So those are the steps in doing a chi-square test. So you should be able to write that. And then you should write what are the assumptions which you take when you're doing that particular test of significance. And you can give an example which will be nice, which will show, because see, In this example, both the values which we are comparing are categorical variables, right? One is boys and girls, and the other is present and absent of ECC. So we know that we use the chi-square test in this. So it will be really good if you can write like this when there is a question, because then the examiner will understand that you know what it means, and finish your answer with the advantages of the test and the limitations of this test. Make sure that you prepare these top T tests, ANOVA, Man-Whitney, and Fisher's exact test also, because we asked times. So these are the questions which have been asked before. Put it topic-wise. So now I'll be sharing the PDF of the PPT with you, probably in the chat itself. I'll share it now. So make sure that this is not a topic that you can omit. Please go through whatever we have discussed in detail. So grateful, thankful, and blessed for the opportunities of presenting and talking to the first year postgraduates today. Thank you, team ISPPD and team Royal Dental College. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, team. And thank you to the ISPPD website team also, the webinar team also. Thank you. As always, I'd like to end by saying, let us not stop at shaping smiles. Let us shape some lives too in whatever small ways that we can. You can text me or email me for any other details. All the very best to all of you for the upcoming exam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Subbalakshmi, for a wonderful lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
You had summarized it very well and made it very simple.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope it helps then.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone has any question?
I think even if they have some questions, they can put it in the chat box, because I think I really overshot my time. So I
Yeah.
don't want to take somebody else's time. So they can put it in the chat box. I'll be online for some more time and I'll answer them if it is there.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that enriching session. Kindly accept the certificate as a mark of our heartfelt appreciation for your excellent talk and support. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you, team. PPD.
So we are going to reach our last presentation of the day. Welcome, Dr. Shilpi.
Our final speaker for today is Dr. Shilpi Diwari, Professor at People's College of Dental Science, People's University, Bhopal. She has completed international fellowships in Austria and Switzerland, and she is the recipient of several prestigious awards, including Distinguished Women Award by ISPPD, Outstanding Young Dentist Award, and Leading Clinician Award. Her areas of interest include child psychology, behavior management, dentistry for child with special healthcare needs. We warmly welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your nice introduction. A very good afternoon, Anjana ma'am, Goel sir, and all the delegates. So I'll share my slide.
Yes, you can share.
Okay. First. Just give me a few minutes, ma'am.
Okay.
Should I start?
Please do.
Okay, a very good afternoon to all the students. It's a last session, so I'm closing the entire basic science pedo array. These are the common questions. Am I audible, ma'am?
You are.
My voice is clear?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, okay. Okay, so these are the common questions which have been asked in previous examinations in different universities, which I will be talking in detail one by one. So basically, child psychology, it is the science that deals with the study of child's mind and how it functions. So it also deals with the mental power or interactions between the conscious and subconscious elements in a child. So why child psychology is important is the importance of child psychology for a pedodontist is multifold. It is not just one thing which we can say. It is very, very important, and it's an integral part of our pediatric dentistry. So, if you know the child patient better, we are able to communicate with the child better, and in turn, we are able to deliver our dental treatment in a very efficient and meaningful way. And also, we can understand many behavioral problems which are psychologically associated, and we can help the parents to identify them. And at the same time, we can use different behavioral management techniques which are applicable to them. So, these theories are broadly classified into two types, that is, our psychodynamic theories and behavioral theories. Under psychodynamic theories, we have psychosexual theory, which is the earliest theory of child psychology. The other name is psychoanalytical theory, given by Sigmund Freud in 1905. The second important theory is psychosocial theory, which is given by Erik Erikson. And the third theory on cognitive development is given by Jean Piaget. Under behavioral theories, we have classical conditioning theory given by Pavlov, operant conditioning theory given by Skinner, and social and observational learning theory, which is given by Bandura. The other relevant theories are hierarchy of needs by Abraham Maslow and separation individualization theory by Margaret Miller. So coming to the first theory of child psychology, that is psychoanalytical theory given by Sigmund Freud. And this Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist, and he was the founder of psychoanalysis. He worked almost 45 years at the University of Vienna in Austria. So coming to what does he stated, he formulated the basis of psychoanalysis. He stated that the personality basically it originates from the biological roots, among which the sexual instincts were the most important ones. And as a result of satisfaction of set of instincts, and he has given 5 stages of psychological development, and he stated that each stage human being feels most tension most intensely in different areas of the body. They are called as erogenous zones. He described human mind with the help of two models. One is topographic model and another one is your psychic model. Looking into the topographic model, uh, it has human mind has 3 levels, which is our conscious mind, which is current thinking process, things which we are paying attention at that particular moment. Then we have a conscious mind, a pre-conscious mind, which is the memories which can be easily brought into our conscious mind. And the third one is our unconscious mind, which is a dump box of all emotional urges and traumatic experiences. To explain topographic model, he has explained it through iceberg phenomena. So what is this iceberg phenomena? According to iceberg phenomena, human mind is like an iceberg floating in an ocean where only a tip is visible, which is our conscious mind, and huge big part is below the ocean, that is our pre-conscious mind and unconscious mind. So I hope all of you are in your conscious mind and listening carefully to the lecture. Okay, so the next is our psychic triad. or the psychic model. So what does it say? It has three components, that is our id, ego and superego. So id, basically it is based on our pleasure principle. It says I want right now everything, while ego says you can have it but you need to do bit planning, that is based on our reality principle. And the third part is superego, which is based on our moral principles and values, and it is a policeman of all ego and id. It says that you cannot have it. So basically, ego, it deals with the demands of reality and the id and the super ego as best as it can. But sometimes what happens whenever there are anxious situations or stressful situations, the anxiety becomes too much overwhelming. That time, the ego has to defend itself with the demands of id and super ego. So how does it do? It does so by unconsciously blocking them or distorting them into less threatening form. These are the various ego defense mechanisms which are occurring in the human brain, which I'll be explaining one by one. The first one is this projection. It's a defense mechanism in which people attribute their own adequacies or faults to someone else. Like if I have a bad feeling about someone, so I project it onto the other person, that other person has bad feelings about me. The second is rationalization, which states it's an attempt to explain our behavior to ourselves and to others in a way which is socially acceptable and which is rational. The example for this would be if you score less in your examination, how do you rationalize it? You say that I had attempted well, but the marking was strict. The next is regression, which is reversion of immature patterns of the behavior to avoid current anxiety. So whenever there is anxious situation, maybe before the viva or before the examination, people start biting their nail. The next is displacement. It is the expression of an unwanted thoughts which are directed towards a weaker person. So if your mother scolds to you, you take it out to your younger sibling, or probably a teacher scolds to you and you take it out to your juniors. The next is denial. So if somebody is diagnosed with a cancer, so he visits multiple doctors for denial of that particular diagnosis. The next will be repression. Repression is basically a primary defense mechanism in which the unpleasant in impulses are pushed back into the conscious mind. Okay, the next is reaction formation. So, in this particular situation, it reduces anxiety by displacing a behavior which is exactly opposite of an impulses that a person may not dare to express. Like if someone is very much anxious, he will try to show very cool. Like some of the students before the examination, they seem to be very cool. So that is nothing but reaction formation. And the next is identification. This is an incorporating an external object into one's own personality, making them part of oneself. That means if somebody has some role model, maybe somebody like Shah Rukh Khan or any other big celebrity, they try to act and behave like that particular identity. They like it. Now, these are the 5 stages of psychosexual development. Starts with the oral stage to the genital stage. So, oral stage, it is from birth to 18 months, and the erogenous zone in this particular stage is oral cavity. The characteristics is that infant is totally dependent on getting his needs fulfilled, and there is very important terminology in Sigmund Freud, that is fixation. So fixation is nothing but it's a failure of development in which a person seeks particular kind of gratification, even he has moved out from that particular stage. So if there is a fixation of oral stage, there will be different kinds of pathologies which can develop, that is smoking, nail biting, drinking, chewing, and etc. As oral cavity is the main center and erogenous zone in particular stage, there will be 2 kinds of personalities which will be developing, that is your oral passive personalities which will have laid back attitude, and the oral aggressive personalities who will be very aggressive kind of personalities, and they will have all kind of such habits. So looking into their dental management, when we see, because feeding plays an important role in the management, in the development of oral cavity. So feeding counseling has to be done in this particular stage, and also the habit counseling has to be done. And because this is a time period, birth to 18 months, where the teething is occurring in a child, so the child is only fixated. So it is very important as a pediatric dentist that we explain about the teething, different teething devices to soothe the gums, how it has to be used. It should be explained to the parents. And very important is the early dental visits has to be a pleasant experience, instilling a positive attitude to the child. So coming to the anal stage, which is the second stage, which will be from 18 months to 3 years, wherein the erogenous zone is in the anal sphincter. Here, the maturation of neuromuscular coordination will occur, and the child will have increased voluntary control over the sphincters. Development of personal autonomy and independence will occur, and the pathological trait, if there is a fixation in this particular stage, will have anal expulsive personalities, which are very disorderliness, and the anal retentive personalities. While in urethral, which is a transitory phase, which is similar to anal phase, and all the features are similar. The next phase is when we look into the dental implications of anal phase. Because the child is seeking autonomy, we must offer controlled choices to the children. Children of age group of 18 months to 3 years, we should offer them choices. Whether you want to sit with your mother, or you want to sit alone, you want to take a toy with along with you, or like this, which are in your control and which you can take it, right? You cannot say them that whether you want to use a rotor or not, like, so we can give them offer controlled choices. And tell should do technique should be done, because gradual familiarization gives them autonomy, and because they have toilet training age anxiety, so they may react negatively to restraint. So avoid doing any kind of forceful treatment at this particular stage. Now, next is phallic stage, which is 3 to 5 years of the age, wherein the erogenous zone is genitals, and the main feature of this particular stage is Electra complex and Oedipus complex. Electra complex means female child has attraction towards his father, whereas Oedipus is male child having attraction towards his mother. So the pathological traits which we see over here is in the men, anxiety and the guilt about the sex, and in the woman there'll be sense of envy and inferiority. Looking into the dental management, how are we going to manage according to Freud this 3 to 6 years old child? Because the female child imitate her mother tries to imitate, and the male child tries to imitate his father. So this is a best age for doing role modeling behaviors to such children. And importance of praise is seen over here, and parental presence during the treatment is must, because to avoid separation anxiety. The next stage is your latency stage. There is no erogenous zone over this phase, and basically the objective of this particular stage is further development of the personality. And the next, and lack of inner control or excessive control will result in the pathological traits. When we look into the latency phase, so this is a phase 6 to 12 years of the age, wherein the oral health education to the children can be given, and preventive dentistry, oral health exceptions, and motivating cooperative behaviors can be done. When coming into the last stage, that is genital stage, which is the adolescent stage, 11 to 13 years of the age. So the child is becoming matured personality, and unresolved traits from the previous phases are seen in this particular phase. So herein, because they have more aesthetic awareness, orthodontic concerns to be handled, and tobacco counseling to be done, and direct communication with the child should be done, and they appreciate confidentiality. So this completes their psychosexual developmental stages. The merits of this particular stage is this is the earliest and most comprehensive theory, and Sigmund Freud has introduced the concept of unconsciousness and focused attention on the early experience for future personality. That is very important. Early childhood experiences plays a major role in the development that has been stated by Sigmund Freud. And the demerits are there for this particular theory, that some of the psychologists, they state that it is based on the obsessed observations of the psychologist, because he has given too much importance on sexual drives. Another thing is, because he studied entire psychoanalysis theory on adult patients, and even they were neurotic patients, so its application to children is not justified. Another point is, its application to normal healthy individuals is not justified, and some of his concepts, they lack strong scientific evidences. So these are the demerits of this particular theory. So now concluding this is, Sigmund Freud psychosexual theory emphasizes that early childhood experiences, they play a crucial role in personality development. These are the common questions which have been derived from this particular theory, and which I have, all the points I have explained, they are the direct questions on this particular theory. And if you have to answer all these questions, the content has to be followed this: writing about introduction, writing about topographic model, explaining about iceberg phenomena, psychic model, ego defense mechanisms, which are 8 in number, and stages of development, which are 5 in number, and then merits, demerits, and at the end you have to conclude with references. This is what is expected if I am the evaluator in the exam. Now coming to the next theory is psychosocial theory or developmental task theory, which is given by Erik Erikson in 1963. So what does Erikson say? He has added social to the social component to the Sigmund Freud's concept. So development depends on child instincts and responses to those around him. And he has given 8 stages of psychosocial development covering entire span of the life cycle. And each stage demands resolution before moving to the next stage. Otherwise, there'll be conflict. So these are the various stages of social development. There are 8 stages of development, starting from trust versus to mistrust to the integrity vs despair, which I'll be explaining you in the next slide. So looking into the first stage, that is trust versus mistrust. If an infant is well cared for his needs, he will develop faith in the future. So as in the dentist, okay? And but in case if he has uncertainty about being taken care, he will look into the world with a fear and suspicion. The next stage is your autonomy vs doubt, which is the toddler stage, because they are learning self-control. So if parents allow the child to grow at his own pace and doesn't give him criticism, he will develop towards autonomy. While on the contrast, if the child is criticized, he will be ashamed of himself and in a stage of doubt. The third stage states over here is initiative vs guilt. So as in the autonomy vs doubt, the child is like, I am what I can do, while in initiative guilt, the child is, I am
Should be the audio is getting disturbed. There is a
encouraged.
the audio is not continuous.
If there is next to it, it was disabled. So in case of initiative, if it has been encouraged, his initiatives have been encouraged, he will develop towards a positive side of it, that is initiative. But his initiations or explorations has been taken as a mischiefs of him, then he will develop towards a negative side of it, that is guilt. Coming to the next stage, which is industry vs inferiority. So this will be 6 years to 5 years to puberty stage. So basically in this particular stage, child will master skills and take pride in his competence. So there will be competency development, role of achievement will come. And again, the negative side, if he has been discouraged to do so, he will be developing into towards the inferiority side. And coming to the next stage, which is identity vs role confusion. So the teenagers, they will try to develop her own separate identity, fitting in with her friends. So this is a stage wherein the adolescent in a stage that who am I? So there'll be a role confusion in the negative side of it. The next stage is intimacy vs isolation. The positive side, people will get into the close relationship with other peoples, while the negative outcome of this will be isolated personalities. The next stage will be middle-aged people, wherein you see the generativity vs stagnation. So if in the middle age you are able to give back to your next generation in terms of your own experiences or the knowledge which you have gained, you will be developing towards a side which is generativity. While if you are not able to do so, you will be on the negative side of it, that is stagnation. So the last stage, when it is later adulthood, when you are getting retired, so when you look back, you look back to your past. If you feel contented, you will be developing towards the integrity side. And while on the, if you have regrets about the thing what has happened in the past, or you are regretting about the things which you have done in the past, so a feeling of despair will develop. So this is how he has given the 8 stages of development. Now looking into its clinical applications. So basically, trust versus mistrust stage, we should be able to establish trust and positive dental experience to the child. So forceful treatment has to be avoided in this particular stage. The second stage, as I have explained, there is development of autonomy. So we should allow simple choices to the children. That is, we have to offer controlled choices. These 5 stages of development, they are corresponding to the Sigmund Freud's developmental stages till your 5 stages. And the next stage is your initiative vs guilt, wherein we have to encourage participation during treatment. And because they like exploration, so our dental visits has to be adventurous during this particular stage. The next stage, industry vs inferiority, we have to build confidence through achievements and rewards, because they like achievements during this particular stage. So like we can have plaque score charts, we can have brushing competitions during this particular phase, and we can have positive feedback sessions about the oral health maintenance. Now coming to the identity vs role confusion, in this particular stage, we can address aesthetic concerns because it's an adolescent phase. We can do orthodontic awareness, we can talk about tobacco counseling, etc. In case in the next stage, that is intimacy, promote long-term oral health responsibilities to the child, and confidence in social interactions, and we should try to give them aesthetic treatments. In the next stage, when they are in the middle adulthood, parents become more involved in children's oral health decisions. And in the next last stage, which is of not clinical importance to the pediatric dentistry, but here in geriatric dentistry, for empathetic communication and maintaining dignity during dental care of such patients. So merit of this particular stage is classification is based on age of an individual. This is the best thing because he has covered the entire lifespan of an individual. And another thing, it is very easy to apply at any stage of development. It is also very simple and comprehensive to understand. He added psychosocial to the psychosexual component of the Sigmund Freud. He added cultural to the biological instincts. He added ego identity to ego defense mechanisms. And he added normal to abnormal. So, and cross-cultural to the cultural specifics. These are various merits of this particular theory. When looking to the demerits, it is based on extreme ends of personality, in extreme ends, and there is no in between. Either it is trust, it is mistrust, or it is identity vs role confusion. There is no in between range of personalities. But it doesn't happen so that we have only two extreme ends of the personality, and it doesn't suit when we are talking about different types of personalities, differences that exist among individuals. So this completes our Erik Erikson's theory. The question asked on this particular theory are these many. Describe Erikson's psychosocial theory of development, discuss its clinical implications in pediatric dentistry. These all are direct questions. So this has to be answered under following headings. That is introduction, stages of development, their dental relevance of each stage, merits, demerits, concluding with references. There is one more question which has come in the previous examinations, that is compare the concepts of psychosocial and psychosexual theories of child psychology as applied to pediatric dentistry. This I will be explaining after Jean Piaget's theory. So the next theory is by Jean Piaget, given in 1952. So basically, he says that learning occurs by knowing and understanding the environment. So cognition means knowing and understanding. So he explained this particular understanding, how it happens. It occurs through certain kind of mechanism, that is operation. So what is an operation? It's an action that child performs it mentally. So this particular action can be reversible. Then schemata. Schemas are nothing but mental representation, or we can say mental frameworks about some particular knowledge. So in simple words, if I explain, they are pieces of knowledge which a child contains. So the next is assimilation. So child already has some knowledge about the environment. So taking a new information into the previously existing schema is known as assimilation. And then accommodation, that is when we take some new information, the child alters the existing schemas, that is accommodation. And then he has to establish equilibrium between the new information and the already existing information what he has. So if I give an example, a child has a schemata of a four-legged animal. He has seen dog. He knows that dog is a four-legged animal. Okay, and he has a tail. But now he takes a new information. He sees a cow. So when he sees a cow, he checks he has a four-legged animal and he has a tail. So he assumes that it will be a big dog. He calls it as big dog. So parents rectify it. No, it's not a big dog. It's a cow. So now he accommodates it as a cow. So he changes or alters his existing schemas about four-legged animal and having a tail. So like this, he keeps adding the new information and accommodates his new information. So the stages of cognitive development, there are 4 stages which Piaget has given in the development. They are sensory motor stage, which is from birth to 2 years of the age. The next stage is pre-operational stage, which is from 2 to 7 years. Concrete operational and formal operational. It is difficult to remember if I say like this, so I'll be explaining one by one. So coming to the sensory motor stage, which is the first stage of development of cognitive cognition. So in first stage, the child begins to interact with the environment. So that's a thing, when a child of 0 to 2 years comes to you, what are you supposed to do is, you can offer them toy when they are sitting on the dental chair, because they learn physical manipulation during this particular stage. Then object permanence is a main feature of this particular stage, which is developing from 0 to 2 years. So a child from 0 to 8 months of the age, he will understand that when we remove an object in front of him, so it doesn't exist. he will be in a stage of this. But by the end of 2 years, he learns object permanence. That means the object is still existing, even it has been taken out of the sight. Okay. And at the end of the 2 year, there'll be development of symbolic thoughts. Symbolic thoughts means the child will try to give symbols to the mental representation of about an object. Like a spoon can be considered as a racing car. So when we are feeding to the child, or maybe we are taking an instrument into the patient's mouth, what we can say them is that a racing car is coming, or maybe an aeroplane is coming. So the symbolic representation or symbolic thoughts will develop. So this is where we can start using euphemism to the children from pre-operational stage. It is 2 to 7 years of the age. And the next is animism. Animism is can be explained like considering the life in an inanimate object. Inanimate object means wall. If you hit the wall, if he has got hit from a wall, and if you hit it, he will feel pleasure, okay, that we have hit in the wall. Okay, so like this. So coming to the next stage, which is pre-operational stage. So in this particular stage, uses symbols in language and play. So further development of symbolic thoughts and animism occurs in this stage. And the thinking is very intuitive, which is initial thinking. So when we are communicating with such children, we have to be slow in talking, and the communication has to be repetitive. And the next is they have egocentrism, irreversibility, centration, and lack of conservations. These are the landmark events which are occurring in this. So egocentrism means he is unable to understand the other's point of view. He can understand only his point of view. So he has explained, Piaget has explained this egocentrism through this experiment where he has kept 3 mountains over here and then a doll on the other side. And the child was asked that how is he feeling? So he could what the doll is feeling. So he could explain only his point of view, not the other person's point of view. The next is irreversibility. He thinks that things cannot be reversed back. He is unaware about reversibility at this particular stage. And then the centration. Centration means if a problem is multifaceted, he can look into only one aspect of the problem and he can understand. So if I say in terms of dental treatment, he might be centered, he will relate the dentistry to the needle, or maybe a positive dental experience. So it is our duty on which particular part we can focus on and distract on such events which can be painful or which can be fear inducing. Then lack of conservation, which is a third aspect. So explaining about the lack of conservation, Piaget has done this conservation task wherein the same amount of water was poured into equal amounts of glasses and then later shifted to the different glass. So he could say, the child could explain that the water is moved in this because he is unaware at this stage about the quantity where the glass, that particular glass. But when he reaches to the next stage, which is concrete operational stage, that is 7 to 11 years of, yes. 7 to 11 years of the age. So in this particular stage, logical concepts and reasoning will develop. So this is a best stage when oral hygiene instructions to be given and oral health education programs to the schools should be carried out, which is concrete operational stage. Because thinking is more stable, they can grab more and they can reproduce the same. And the concepts of reversibility, decentration, and conservations, they are the landmark events of this particular stage, which I have explained already in pre-operational stage. The opposite of it will develop in this particular stage. The last stage is formal operational, which is 11 years onward. So the thinking becomes abstract, systematic, and reflective. And this particular phase of children, they feel that they are all the time on the stage. So that is called as imaginary audience. So this completes all the cognitive developmental stages of Piaget. Now looking into its clinical significance, I have already told sensory motor, there should be some, we can give a child a toy, and there should be visual stimulation during this particular phase. Pre-operational, we have to use simple languages. Concrete operational, we can do or oral health education and all other things. And in the formal operational, we can, because the thinking is abstract, we can discuss treatment outcomes with them about the aesthetics, orthodontics, and they can be involved in the decision making. So this completes our cognitive developmental theory, which is given by Jean Piaget. The question asked in this particular theory are compare the concepts of psychosocial and psychosexual theories of child psychology as applied to the pediatric dentistry, and compare and contrast development of child as per Piaget and Erik Erikson's theory. So no separate question has come on this particular theory, but the comparison has been asked. So in this particular questions, whenever there is comparisons have been asked, we have to write down about the introduction of each theory in brief. Then we have to give comparison between asked theories, whichever has been asked, and then comparison of developmental stages of each theory, and then conclusion with references. So herein, I will just give you an example, like if there is a comparison between Freud and Erikson. So Freud has stated that why children behave, Erikson has stated that how children interact socially, and Piaget has stated that how children think, right? This is a basic difference. And this is a comparative table which you can look into, which is comparing Freud's, Erikson's, and Piaget theory of child development. And these are the main aspects like main focus, driving force, development occurs through which all stages, number of stages, key concepts, importance of early childhood, consequences of failure, what will happen, role of parents, pediatric dental relevance, and what are the major critics. So under these particular aspect, you have to frame the comparisons and you have to write in detail, and even dental relevance can be elaborated. These are the, and then you can give a comparison of stages across theories, and each stage's dental relevance also you can give it in a comparative chart, and then give a conclusion to it. So that completes the question answers of psychodynamic theories of child psychology and cognitive developmental theory of Jean Piaget. So, so this is a challenge for all the audience. A child who is refusing dental treatment and starts crying, what are we seeing? The real problem or only the visible behavior? So if you are getting the answer, kindly type A and B in your chat box. Are you all in conscious state? So if yes, please type it.
As of now, yes.
Okay. So because it's a last session and that too on psychology, so those who are sleeping, please pinch your ears or take a deep breath and come back to the session. And so the answer is definitely behavior is the tip of the iceberg, and all hidden fears and anxieties are at the bottom, which we don't see. So as a pediatric dentist, we should just not focus on the tip of the iceberg. We should try to find out what are the existing fears and anxieties in a child are there. Okay, so I'm continuing towards the behavioral theories of child psychology. They are classified into classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning theory by Bandura. So coming to the classical conditioning theory, so what does he says? He says that learning occurs by pairing or association of two stimuli. So he has explained certain terminologies. They are unconditioned stimuli. So any stimuli that elicits a particular response without any learning will be your unconditioned stimulus, and the response produced will be unconditioned response, which is unlearned response, and it is occurring automatically by its own. That is unconditioned stimulus and unconditioned response. Now, when a neutral stimuli normally is the one which doesn't give any kind of response, but when neutral stimulus, when it is paired with unconditioned stimulus, over a period of time repeatedly will give rise to conditioned stimulus, conditioned response. So that particular response is conditioned response, and over a period of time, this stimulus becomes conditioned stimulus. So these are the four terminologies which you should know about classical conditioning. That is unconditioned stimulus, neutral stimulus, unconditioned stimulus, and conditioned stimulus. So herein, to explain this, he has done a dog's experiment. So when we see into this dog's experiment, before conditioning, the food is unconditioned stimulus, for which the response dog gives is unconditioned response is salivation. So before conditioning, when we ring a bell to a dog, there will be no response. So there will be no salivation. But when we combine bell, which is a neutral stimulus, with food, which is an unconditioned stimulus, so it becomes unconditioned response. And over a period of time, if we keep doing so, it becomes conditioned response, and this bell particularly will become conditioned stimulus. So if we just ring the bell and the dog is starting salivating, so that time the bell has become a conditioned stimulus. To explain his classical conditioning theory, he has given these five principles. So acquisition is the process in which a neutral stimuli is becoming a conditioned stimuli through a repeated association with an unconditioned stimulus. So this I have already explained how the neutral stimulus is combined with the unconditioned stimulus, and over a period of time it becomes a conditioned stimulus. So in short, if you have to remember, acquisition is the process by which neutral stimulus becomes conditioned stimulus. Okay. All right. The next is generalization, wherein stimuli similar to the original conditioned stimuli will also evoke a conditioned response. And there'll be generalization, like bell of all kinds will be giving the same kind of response of the dog, that he will start salivating. That is called as generalization. But this will be to a limited period. Over a period, the dog will start discriminating between different kind of bell sounds. So it's the ability to distinguish between the conditioned stimulus and any other stimuli. And then we have extension. So over a period of time, if we are just giving conditioned stimulus without a unconditioned stimulus, so there'll be extension of conditioned response. That means if we just ring the bell over a period of time and we are not giving any food to the dog, this conditioned response will be stopped. But then again, he said that if there is a huge gap between the time duration, there will be reappearance of previously extinguished conditioned response. So this conditioned response was extinguished because he was just ringing the bell. He was not giving the food to the dog. But all of a sudden, without any new conditioning, he will regain it, and maybe sometime there is a ringing of bell and he starts salivating. That's called as spontaneous recovery. So now I'll be relating this to the dentistry, how it works. So when we look into this, the first example is white coat. When we see a white coat child sees for the first time, there'll be no response. It will act as a neutral stimulus. But when white coat is associated with the injections, because children, they go to a pediatrician wherein they get their vaccinations done. So they see injections with the white coat. So there'll be pain, fear, and crying, which is an unconditioned response. So when they report to us, when they come to us, so the white coat will act as a conditioned stimulus, for which there'll be pain, fear, and crying. That's where the role that they say the dentist attire plays an important role in pediatric dentistry. So we can use different kind of, aprons and cartoon characters and all. Okay. And the second example, if we see, is dental drill sound initially gives no response, but dental drill sound, when the child will experience pain along with the dental drill, there will be unconditioned response, that is fear and crying. So dental drill sound, when it is paired with painful dental experience, it will lead to fear and crying. And if repeated pairing occurs, so over a period, dental drill sound itself will act as a fear and crying. So we should avoid giving any kind, we should try that we are not giving any kind of pain to the child. In turn, we can avoid this particular situation. So there's one more example I can give over here. If a child has painful dental extraction, so any painful event is as unconditioned stimulus, to which he has a response which is fear and crying. So he will be fearful to all the dentist. Now maybe he has visited to a general dentist or maybe to a pediatric dentist. So he has fear to all dentists. He will not visit to a dentist. This is called as generalization. But if we do counter conditioning, that which is an application of classical conditioning theory, that is counter conditioning, or we do systematic desensitization or familiarization. So that means if we do several pleasant dental visits, so this generalization will be gone off, fear will get disappear, and the child will become cooperative. And if we give a long period of gap, then again there might be possibility that there is spontaneous recovery of mild fear. So we have to be very cautious when we are giving appointments. So the merits of this particular stage is it explains learning through association between stimuli and response, and it helps us understand development of dental fear and anxiety in children. And it provides basis for behavioral modification techniques which are used in pediatric dentistry. But it has certain demerits as well. That is, learning doesn't always occur through stimulus association alone. There are many ways by which the learning can occur. So this he has not explained. And then it focuses only on observable behaviors, and it ignores what are the cognitive processes occurring in a child, and what are his emotional development, and what are the personality development. This completes classical conditioning theory of Pavlov. So, what are the questions have been asked? That is, discuss in detail Pavlov theory and its clinical implications. Again, it's a very direct question, so it has to be answered in this manner. You have to introduce this theory, then that learning occurs by association or pairing of stimuli. Then you have to explain all the terminologies, which is unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, then conditioned stimulus and conditioned response, then explain dog experiment, then explain principles involved. There are total 5 principles which are involved over here. Then give a dental applications like white coat example and certain other examples you can incorporate. Give the behavior management techniques which are derived from it, merits and demerits of this theory, and then give a conclusion and references. So now coming to the next theory, which is operant conditioning theory, which is given by Skinner in 1938. So what does Skinner says? He says that learning occurs by acting or seeing the consequences of our own actions. Classical conditioning, learning was occurring through association or pairing of stimuli, while herein learning is occurring by acting or seeing the consequences of our own actions. So what is behavior? The behavior that operates or control the environment is called as operant. So what is operant? Operant is nothing but it's a behavior which is operating or controlling the environment. So to explain his theory, he has given a rat experiment, wherein he has placed rat in a closed chamber which has speakers, which has signal lights, which has lever and food dispenser. So the rat is allowed to move in this, and there are electric shock generator as well. So the rat was moving in the chamber here and there. Suddenly he has pressed the lever. The moment he has pressed the lever, the food has come out from the food pellet. positive. Over a period, he kept doing this and he understood that pressing the lever will give him food. So this is how a person has to act on the environment, and then he learns the concept, and he sees his own actions and he learns. And sometimes he had also generated shock over here. So whenever he was moving down, the electric shock he could felt. So there are different kinds of operant conditioning. They are positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, omission, and punishment. Explaining each one of them. So basically, if we see the dental setup, what kind of behavioral response we need to increase? That is cooperative and positive behavior. And what kind of behavior we don't want? That is negative behavior. A child who is crying, who is showing temper tantrums. So we have to decrease the probabilities of such behaviors, and we have to increase the probability of positive behavior. So how it happens? Presentation of pleasant stimuli. If the pleasant stimuli is present to the child and he has a cooperative behavior, it is called as positive reinforcement. It is done through reward. The reward can be in multiple ways. And the second one is negative reinforcement, wherein unpleasant stimuli is withdrawn, will increase the probability of positive behavior is negative reinforcement or escape. Like for some time we can just if the child is not liking the sound of the suction, or maybe the eugenol smell, or maybe other things which are negative, unpleasant to the child, can be for a short period of time can be stopped, and it will increase the probability of positive behavior. While if the pleasant stimuli is withdrawn, will decrease the probability of negative behavior. That is called as time out. So if the child is not behaving properly, he is showing he is not cooperating with the dental treatment. So the mother's presence if mother's presence is pleasant, can be removed for time being. That is called as time out or omission. The last is your punishment. Punishment means is presentation of unpleasant stimuli. So normally that is punishment. So normally punishment nowadays we are not practicing in pediatric dentistry, and for this we need informed consent as well. So there are four basic types of operant conditioning, which is positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, omission, and punishment. So looking into the dental applications, I have briefed it out. So I have already explained the four of them, and then token economy, contingency management, differential reinforcements, behavior contracting, response cost, and timeout. They all are behavior management techniques which are derived from operant conditioning theory. The merits of this theory is it is scientifically based and focuses on observable behaviors. Maximum of behavior management techniques, they are derived from this particular theory, and it has wide clinical applicability in behavior management. But certain psychologists say that it is in this particular theory too much dependence on rewards is there, and it neglects the internal mental processes which are occurring in a child's brain, and it has also limited explanation of complex human behaviors. So the question asked on this particular theory is operant conditioning theory and its clinical applications in dental practice. So this is how the content has to be introduce this particular theory, explain rat experiment, explain four types of behavior, dental applications, merits and demerits, conclude with references. And one more question which has been asked is compare and contrast classical conditioning and operant conditioning theory. So here's the comparison. Under these particular aspects, you should write down your comparison, giving a brief introduction about the theory, and then later explain the experiments of both of them in a tabular form. It has a dog experiment, it has a rat experiment. Give examples of this, of both of them, and applications in detail. So now coming to the next theory, which is social learning theory, or the another name for this particular theory is observational learning theory or vicarious learning theory by Albert Bandura. So in 1963 he has given. So he says learning occurs by watching others. So how does it happen? The key concepts of this particular theory are attention, retention, reproduction, and reinforcement. So attention, so to learn any new kind of behavior, first of all, we all have to be attentive. And once we are attentive, whatever we have gained through the learning, that we have to retain in our brain, and whatever is retained has to be reproduced in we should be able to reproduce that. And to do so, we have to be motivated, and continuous reinforcement should be there. So demonstrations, what we give is a kind of modeling. So now the looking into the dental applications in pediatric dentistry, we have live models, a positive child getting the dental treatment done and another child observes this live modeling. Then we have audiovisual modeling, in which we show some kind of videos to the child, and looking at that the child becomes cooperative. Then participant modeling, in which the child observes and then he actively participates. And then symbolic modeling. These are the different applications in pediatric dentistry. So merits of this theory is it is effective learning without direct experience. It reduces fear and anxiety, and the best thing is it is easy and practical to apply, and it promotes positive social behaviors and dental attitudes. While in case the demerits of this particular theory, they include individual differences, they affect learning, and if our model is not appropriate, it will not be an effective modeling technique. And there are possibilities of learning undesirable behavior. Definitely, it is not possible that all the time the child will observe the ideal model. He can check out the wrong behaviors also, and he can learn that. And it does not fully explain behavior. By some psychologists, they say that this particular theory is not explaining behaviors completely. This completes modeling theory. And the last theory of this session is hierarchy of needs, which is given by Maslow. So what does he says? That the needs of an individual, they are arranged in a hierarchy. As one type of need is satisfied, the another higher needs order needs emerges. So first need, our basic need, is our physiological need. That is the need for breathing, food, water, sleep, etc. Once we have our physiological need met, we have safety need. Safety need, that we should be secured, we should have a house, and we should have a family. And once we are safe, then the next thing comes is we look into having friendships, we look into having family, etc. And when we have friends, the all problem is there. We need to have we look into our self-esteem, we look into our achievements, respects, and other. And then on top is the self-actualization phase. So basically the self-actualization is a phase wherein you reach to your higher potential of your own self. You are the best version of yourself. That is the great painter, great poet, or maybe I can give an example of currently Vaibhav Suryavanshi, who has played so well in current IPL match. So that is a phase a few of them reaches there. Rest other will be struggling in our esteem phases, in our different needs. So how it is applicable to the dentistry when we look into it is this, that in the dental setup, when a patient is coming to us, we should make sure that his physiological needs are met, that the child is comfortable, he is his tummy is filled, and we should try to minimize pain. We should have a soothing environment in the clinic, and the temperature is appropriate for the child. His safety needs are met, that is create a safe and predictable environment to the child. Love and belonging needs, when we look into it, establish a warm dentist child relationship and encourage parental support. When we look into the esteem needs, build self confidence of a child through praise, positive reinforcement, reinforcement, which I've already explained, and self-actualization. So if the child is in that particular, self-actualization need, encourage children to take responsibility of their oral health, participate in decision making, and develop lifelong positive oral hygiene experiences. So, what are the merits? It is easy to understand and apply. It emphasizes holistic development. It is useful in child management, encourages positive motivation. Demerits of this particular theory is that it lacks strong scientific evidence, and need may not follow a fixed sequence. And this is also true. He has given a fixed sequence of needs, and it ignores what all cultural differences are there, and it oversimplifies human motivation. So, concluding my today's presentation, understanding the child is the first step in treating the child. So, child psychology theories, they are not merely academic concepts, they are practical tools. By integrating these theories together, pediatric dentists can communicate effectively, reduce anxiety, build trust, encourage cooperation, and creates a positive dental experience that promote lifelong oral health. These are the references which have been used in this presentation. Thank you all for your patience hearing. And by ending my presentation, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. I would like to thank ISPPD for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts about psychology to you all. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Shilpi, for that extensive and beautiful presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
You had simplified psychology, and I hope the children have learned considerably and will go back and read about it further. Any questions?
Until now, no question, ma'am.
I'll make sure that these presentations are shared, students. If you have any further queries, you can contact us.
Okay, ma'am.
Go ahead. Thank you, Shilpi, once again. That brings us to the end of the sessions. You can take over, Kavya.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful session. Kindly accept this certificate as a token of our sincere gratitude for your informative and inspiring talk. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anjana ma'am.
You're welcome, dear.
Thank you,
Thanks.
team. Thank you.
With
Kavya.
this, okay, ma'am. With this, we come to end of 2 days ISPPD Basic Science Rapid Review Program. Thank you all for your active participation and cooperation. Then I would like to invite Dr. Mufida Kenasa, Associate Professor, Department of Pediatric and Preventive Dentistry, Royal Dental College, to deliver vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the organizing team, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to all who made this online event a success. First and foremost, we extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Sudhindra Baliga, President, ISPPD, Dr. Varinder Goyal, Honorable Secretary, ISPPD, and Executive Committee members of ISPPD for organizing this excellent academic initiative and also for entrusting Royal Dental College with the opportunity to host this online rapid review program on basic sciences. I would also like to express a sincere gratitude to the esteemed speakers, Dr. Nandita P., Dr. Priya S.A., Dr. Arun Mamachan, Dr. Gopinath P., Dr. Indira M.D., Dr. Varun Venkat, Dr. Shabnam Sahib, Dr. Santosh Pillai, Dr. Subbalakshmi, and Dr. Shilpi Tiwari for sharing their valuable knowledge, insights, and expertise. We also thank all the participants for their enthusiastic involvement and active participation throughout the sessions. Though it's not needed, I would like to thank the organizing committee members, Dr. Anjana Ji, Dr. Anup, Dr. Amrita Joy, Dr. Liti, and Dr. Reshma, whose tireless efforts made this event exemplary. I would also like to mention our postgraduates, especially Dr. Snisha and Dr. Kavya, for their constant support. Last but not the least, a special word of appreciation to the technical support team and everyone working behind the scenes for the success of this event. Thank you all once again, and all the best for the attendees for their upcoming examinations.
That brings us to the end of the session. I hope it was useful for you all. I will make sure that you all know where the PowerPoints can be shared. That's it. Thank you all. Wish you all very best, all the very best for your exams. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all once again. We hope the sessions were informative, inspiring, and beneficial to everyone present here. Once again, thank you all.
ഓടിപ്പോകുന്നൊരു ചിഹ്നമുള്ളത് ശരിക്കും